Welcome to our YouTube channel titled Vinyl City Broadcasting, your transit express to rock and roll trivia. I'm Marie, the host of VCB. Got to get to the studio. See you all in September. You're probably all wondering, what's happening? This is not September. Go back in time to 1966. What was the biggest hit that came out in September of that year? If you said, "See You in September" by The Happenings, you are correct. And today, our special guest on the show is Mr. Bob Miranda, one of the original members of the group. That was a clever idea you had, Rico, to put that old 1966 calendar on the studio wall with The Happenings as the main visual. The picture on the calendar was taken in 1967 at the Festival of San Remo, held in San Remo, Italy. Bob couldn't remember what first prize was. The group didn't win first prize, but he thought the winner got a free calzone. Rico, enlarge the picture of them to show our audience.
I'll be alone each and every night. While you're away, don't forget to write.
You can read more about the festival on their website, which we'll post on our last slide. It's under Photo Gallery. That was a very interesting story. The following year, 1967, they had another hit. It was called I Got Rhythm. We have a clip of The Happenings performing it back in 1967 on the Smothers Brothers show. Run the video, Rico.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you to listen to a group called The Happenings. They have a new hit on an old song from the days of the Depression. But there's nothing depressing about the way they do this song. It's George Gershwin's I've Got Rhythm, and it's sung by The Happenings. It's an old song, and it's looks like it's going to be one of the top songs in the country by one of the top groups. Ladies and gentlemen, I've Got Rhythm with The Happenings.
We sometimes lose our way, but I am never lost. I feel this way because dip, 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 dip.
Bob is from Paterson, New Jersey, and as the original lead singer of The Happenings, began making musical history with #1 records like See You in September, Go Away Little Girl, I Got Rhythm, and Mammy. See You in September quickly spiraled up the charts and became an international #1 record throughout the entire summer. Do you remember where you were that summer? Entertainment Magazine has listed See You in September in the top 100 summer songs of all time. The group appeared on all the major television shows, including 7 appearances on The Tonight Show. I guess Johnny really liked them. Richard Nader, one of the greatest promoters of all time, stated, "The incredible sound of The Happenings is as good today as it was in the 60s. With over 50 years' experience in the music business, Bob has become more than an accomplished singer, songwriter, musician, and producer. He has become a legend." We had the opportunity to interview Bob in an LAR Doo Wop show titled The Best of Doo Wop Volume 4 in January of this year at the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts in Cerritos, California. Bob appeared with other doo wop groups that evening. Dan Pequeno, a VCB contributor, did the interview. Run that interview, Rico.
Hi, Dan at Vinyl City Broadcasting. I'm sitting next to Mr. Bob Miranda, not related to Carmen Miranda, although his mother's name was Carmen Miranda.
My mom's name was Carmen Miranda.
All right.
Yeah.
And Bob, the original lead singer for a group called The Happenings. They had a big hit in the 1960s. And so we're going to pick Bob's mind and find out a little something about his history, the song, and how it all came together. So, Bob, tell us about the song, See You in September. How did that come together for you good folks?
Well, it's a kind of a long story, I guess, but we had obviously a relationship with the Tokens. They were our producers at the time. Jay Siegel, you probably interviewed already.
We got to see him a little while ago.
Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine, and we worked together a lot. I love that guy, and I love his voice. He's got an amazing voice.
He's a big part of rock and roll history.
Big part.
Like you a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, See You in September was a hit before we had it. It was a hit by the Tempos, as you probably
I heard
know.
it, yes.
In 59, maybe?
Late 50s.
60? Okay, so I always loved this song, and nothing against the Tempos, but I thought we could make a better record.
And you did. Tell us about it.
Well, you know, we stripped it down and added all these little vocal hooks, put a Motown feel to what they did was like a cha-cha, slow cha-cha. We zipped it up and put it on steroids, you know, sort of, with all the vocal hooks and stuff. And I loved the song, and it was, the timing of it was great too. Jubilee, BT Puppy released it April. So they gave it a couple of months to build momentum for the summer, and it was a huge hit for us with See You in September, yeah.
And this is something I like to share with the VCB audience, is like a song, sometimes it's a hit song because of how it was written. But it comes down to the interpretation of the song, and Bob changed the song, interpreted it differently, and it became a big hit, didn't it?
Big hit.
So that's the ingredients that makes a song a big hit, the songwriting and the interpretation. So,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, and that was the beginning of a formula that we kept for a long time.
Because it works.
Taking a proven hit and, just stripping it down, changing it. If we thought, I wouldn't go near, Love Me Tender or something, but, a song that we think maybe a new generation doesn't even remember. If we stripped it down and gave it a whole new, fresh face, that became our formula. And we did that with Go Away Little Girl. It was actually Carole King who wrote that and suggested that we do it. She wanted the follow-up to See You in September.
Okay, we didn't know this.
And so we said, well, that was a hit by Stephen Lawrence, not too long ago, maybe 5 years ago. Big hit. And she said, yeah, but just put the happening spin to it. In other words, Motown feel, vocal hooks, and the song was great. So the value of the song was there, and we came out with a whole fresh new song that many kids didn't know that it was a hit before. So
And you put some life into it.
we put new life into it, yeah.
And then other people became attracted to hearing your music.
That's right.
Thanks to your formula of putting some life into it,
Correct.
It's one of the philosophies I've learned about for public speakers.
Yeah.
And the philosophy is put fire in your talk or put your talk in the fire.
Okay.
So you put fire in that song. You gave it some life, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, just changing it to the falsetto lead changed it also, So there were a lot of things that created our sound, actually,
So you called your group The Happenings. So how did the name Happenings come together?
Well, when we went and signed a 5-year contract with the Tokens, our group was called the Four Graduates, which we felt was dated. I mean, it was the Four Freshmen, the Four, a whole bunch of other groups that were from the early 50s and 50s. So we felt that the Four Graduates name was dated. So it was just a laundry list we had of names that we each came up with, and The Happenings was one of them. It was a phrase that was just coming about. Hey,
Okay.
what's happening? It was a
Okay.
new phrase.
Like Hey Pasa?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
So on that list, if I can remember, we could have been the Bitter Lemons or the Corduroys or some other crazy name, but The Happening stuck, and we liked it, and it was current, contemporary at the time, so that's what we stuck with, and I'm still sticking with it. Dan?
Well, we're proud of you for sticking it out. So you've been on the road since the 60s. You've had to have had some funny experiences, memorable experiences. Anything that comes to your mind you'd like to share with us?
Well, this one isn't so funny, but we worked with the Beach Boys, did a couple of weeks with them and opened for them. And this was late 60s, early 70s. And I got to know Carl Wilson pretty well. And we talked after the show, and he said, where are you staying? I said, well, we're staying at the Holiday Inn. And he said, well, so are we. He said, why don't you come over? I want to play you something that we're about to release. That's great. So I went to his room, and he had a TIAC reel-to-reel in his motel room. And I said, well, what is this? And he says, well, this is something, it's still a rough mix, but we're going to release it as a single.
Okay.
And I said, great, And he played me Good Vibrations.
Got it.
And I literally just fell out of the chair. I went, oh my God, if that isn't a smash hit, I don't know what is. I mean, it was just...
That's
it
cool
was
history.
Incredible.
That's cool. This is the behind the scenes stuff
Yeah.
that we're looking for.
Well,
Because I wasn't there, you were, and you're sharing it with us. So that's outstanding.
things like that, I have to tell every once in a while, because otherwise I forget about it.
You mean you're an adult like all of us?
Yeah, I think I
Keep
am.
forgetting we have smog in our noggin or something?
This is kind of a funny story also. We were working in a club in the 70s in New Hampshire, at Giovanni's it was called. And we're doing a sound check, and the club owner comes up to me and he says, you know, we got a big marquee outside, and I'd like to put something on there that, you know, is going to tell people that, you know, you got a lot of hit records and stuff. So meanwhile, this teenager who's going to change the sign comes over, and so I said, well, why don't you just put, you know, the Happenings singing their million sellers. So he says, that's great, that'll fit on the marquee. So we finished our sound check, we went back to the hotel, and we're driving back to the club, and we see the marquee, and it says, the Happenings sing in a million sellers. CELLARS. And I said, how did he know? We sang in a million sellers.
So he was not a graduate from Harvard, was
Oh, God, I wanted to kill him. A putz. It was a putz.
he? And he's teaching English in high school, right? So what are you and the Happenings doing these days? Where are you guys going, and what are your future plans for singing, and what's going on with you guys?
Well, this is unusual. We're in Cerritos now, but I don't get to work much in my own state. I'm usually flying to the East Coast
Okay.
because there are a lot of shows there, and we're actually known better there because I've been playing on the East Coast. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I moved out here in '92 to California. And so this is a thrill for me to be able to drive home instead of getting on a plane and everything.
Plus, you're living in paradise.
Yeah.
Bob. You don't want to be in New England right now.
No,
30-degree weather.
I never want to be there, to tell you the truth. But
Unless
for
it's business.
For work, it's business. But we're chugging along. We're working quite a bit with other groups. I'm working in February with the Love and Spoonful and Gary Lewis. I work with Jay and the Americans quite a bit. I know those guys from the early days when they had Jay Black still with them.
Okay.
And I love doing those nostalgia concerts like we're doing tonight. I mean, the energy is palpable sometimes with this kind of crowd. You're stirring up memories that maybe they haven't had in 50 years. And so I love doing that. I love watching the expression on their face when they hear somebody who actually sang that song and put a face to it, you know.
Exactly. And that's why VCB and myself, we drove here for that energy.
For that energy.
Because like I told you earlier, I'm a teenager again, thanks to you guys, Bob. You know, I mean, my mind is still with Elvis, the Coasters, the Drifters, and, you know, but here I am, I'm getting to meet the original artists, people like you, and hearing your original songs, putting a face to it.
Yeah.
Because in the 50s, it was just the music out of the radio.
Out of the radio.
Didn't really get to see them unless they were on a bandstand or something, but otherwise you didn't get to see them, you know?
Maybe you remember where you were when you heard that song on the radio. But
Some songs, exactly, you know exactly where you were because it has specific meaning for you.
Right.
Because music is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it transcends boundaries in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And people that don't understand English, they hear the song and they're like, we don't know what they're saying, but we like what they're saying, you know? So, Bob, it was outstanding for you to kindly sit down with us.
My pleasure.
Give us your 2 and 3 cents worth of memories. We look forward to seeing you and the Happenings later this evening, doing your thing.
Yeah. It's going to be a great show.
I know it will be.
All these people here are my friends, you know, that we're with.
You're our
Freddie
friends.
Cannon and Jay and the Orlons, who I just actually met tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I said, this is the music I grew up to.
Yeah.
You know, actually going before the rock and roll era. So that's it. We thank the VCB audience for being out there.
The two guys really had a nice rapport with one another, and it showed in the interview. Some cool trivia there. Bob, we were glad you went with The Happenings and not bitter lemons. And the story behind See You in September was very informative. I'm glad they put some steroids into the song. It definitely gave it some energy. Also, working with Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys. There was some good vibrations happening there. And finally, the typo on the marquee at the club where you were performing that said, The Happenings, singing their million sellers. And instead it went up and read, The Happenings, singing in a million sellers, CELLARS. How funny is that? Rico knows about typos. Don't tell him I said that, okay? After the interview, we took a few pictures with Bob and chatted for a while. Of course, we all went to the concert that evening and enjoyed everyone's performance. Thank you, Mr. Miranda, for your time and allowing us to interview you. It was a pleasure. Before we close the show, we want to remind you all to go to The Happenings website, www.thehappenings.com, which will post on the final slide along with their contact information. Time to go, Rico. Why don't you put on an appropriate closing song for our show today?